I'm a scientist, and being a little weird and very nerdy, I always found fascinating what Aristotle said. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. And wondered, what is this more? One reason I'm so fixed on this idea is because I love how something very complex can be built by much simpler parts that interact. Our body is composed of very simpler interacting units, our cells, just like cities emerge from people and flocks from birds. This curiosity led me, and now my laboratory, to work on how cells create this more to make tissues and organs, and also because I believe it will help us to predict how disease emerge. It is becoming clear that our genome, our DNA, and its mutation can help us understand which cancer each of us may develop. However, it is a poor predictor of actually getting it. Other factors need to be taken into account, such as age and the immune system. In fact, cancer mutations happen all the time in the normal population, with almost all of us having them at a certain age. So what does this mean? It means that at a certain point in our life, we will have these mutations, but they may not present as cancer. 15 years ago, the first human genome was sequenced, and we have been promised that our DNA will help us understand our disease and then cure them. This led to very important discoveries in medicine and biology, but this knowledge is not enough to understand how disease starts and emerge, because our body, it is not a robot, it's not a car, it's not a planned and constructed machine. It's built bottom-up from an interaction and a collection of cells that interact and self-organize. Let's imagine our cells as a collection of cells that interact, communicate, and speak to each other, creating together organs such as our brain that has consciousness and our intestine that digests food. These large-scale organ properties are more than the sum of the cellular properties. However, these local communication, this self-organization, is also what often goes wrong at the onset of a disease. You might be wondering, what is self-organization? So it's a process in which interacting individuals, whether it's people creating cities or birds in a flock or cells in our body, organize and order themselves in larger scale structures and patterns, not because anybody has planned it, but because local interaction rise cities and grow bodies. At the individual level, there's only local interaction, and no individuals knows the complexity of the structure. No single birds know the shape of a flock, and no cell think, oh, how do I make a body? It is all around us, at all levels of life. We all, as individuals, interact and self-organize, creating evolving societies with recurrent patterns and behaviors. No matter where we are in the world, culture, language, and religion will emerge from human interactions. Cities are one of the clearest examples of emergent behavior. To imagine how people and cities emerge from interaction of people, imagine a long time ago, a crossing of trading roads on a protected island on a river delta. There people meet and interact. From this interaction, a first restaurant or inn is built, And from this first local attractor, other houses are built for the waiters and the cook, creating an emergent self-organized city. My favorite city ever and hometown, Rome. In the same way, during development, our cells interact, creating local attractors that become centers, an organ, or in our adult body, the regeneration of tissues and organ is an emergent property of our cells. After an injury, local interaction between growing cells drive the repair and healing of the tissue without any single cells knowing how the final tissue should look like. The cells have molecular mechanisms to sense their environment, respond correctly to injury, recreate healthy tissue without anybody planning it. However, these mechanisms can go wrong, generating outgrowths of cells that continuously regenerate, acquire mutation, and in favorable immune environment, start making tumors. A very important property of this self-organized system is that they're hard to predict, especially when they are perturbed. Changing few individuals might have unexpected consequences at the higher global scale. Imagine Rome, the small initial restaurant that grew and self-organized into a big and complex city. Any changes to this complexity are often inefficient and have unpredictable side effects. Improving some aspect of the city might have a devastating effect on others. This was clear already in ancient Rome, when Nero, in order to change things, decided to ignore the self-organization and take an absolutely radical and drastic approach. He destroyed the city with a 6-day-long fire, giving him the freedom to fully rebuild from scratch, but with devastating and deadly consequences to the population. With chemotherapy, we do the same thing. We ignore the self-organization, and we set up a fire to kill the cancer, but with very severe side effects to our body. Recently, it has been shown that if you take cancer cells and you squeeze them, changing their environment and their local communication, you can make these cells not cancer anymore. So can we find a weak spot in the self-organization to kill the cancer without too many side effects? In my laboratory, we use organoids that mimic the self-organization of stem cells to create mini organ, but outside of the body. These organoids don't have the full complexity of a body, but they have the complexity of tissues and organs. We can take a single cell, a stem cell from the intestine, let it grow, divide, create a population of cells that interact, self-organize, and create mini intestine that have many of the function of the real intestine, but in the laboratory. Plus, we can add external factors, such as the immune system. These organoids are revolutionizing our way of studying self-organization, because with them we can record properties at different scales, at the organ global scale and at the individual single cell. Comparing these two scales, we can deduce the rules of cells' self-organization, while they create a full tissue and a full organ. And finally getting at my dream, that is to understand how the more is created only when cells interact. With these organoids, mine and other labs in the world can follow the development of human mini organs, not only from healthy individuals, but also from cancer patients, and use them to determine how they react to treatment. As you can imagine, this is an incredible way forward for a personalized and tailored medicine. Already now, Any child with cystic fibrosis in the Netherlands has a personalized treatment that is determined by how the organoid react to approved drugs. I truly believe that understanding how cells interact to create tissues and organs will help us design better drugs for me, for you, and for our kids. These drugs won't control a single gene or a single cell. They will control the self-organization. Aristotle told us 2,500 years ago that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. This difference is what drives lives and evolution of human and societies. It's the self-organization. Sometimes science just takes a little while to catch up. Thank you.